Hello, upper school. Today we are going to continue learning about landscapes and we're going to be making another one just with more detail. Today I'm going to use a big Sharpie and a little Sharpie, so thick and thin. So I have the thick lines and thin lines. Of course, you're probably going to be using a pencil, and I would suggest using a pencil because if you make any mistakes, it's easier to fix and erase. Just remember, when you're drawing, draw lightly so that if you need to correct any lines or any mistakes that you made, that you draw lightly, and when you erase, those will come off the paper really easily. All right, let's start. Okay, so last time when we talked about landscapes, we talked about the foreground, the middle ground, and background. And we're gonna use the same things today to make this landscape. And it's gonna be a fall landscape because it's almost fall. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make some lines on my paper. So I'm gonna divide my paper up. So the first line I'm going to make is gonna be the line for the foreground. So towards the bottom of my paper, where the foreground would be, I'm gonna draw a line. And it's a little bit different than last time because we just drew the horizon line, but I just wanted to show you guys how you can divide up the paper. So this is gonna be for the foreground. I'm gonna make another line a little up further towards the middle of my paper, and this is gonna be for the middle ground. So I have the space for my foreground and middle ground. The last line that I'm going to make when I'm dividing up the paper is going to be for the horizon line. So my horizon line, just like we did last time, is just gonna go straight across the paper again. So right now, I have my foreground, my middle ground, and my background. This is my horizon line. Now remember, the horizon line is where the sky and the ground touch, or where the sky and the ocean touches if you're looking out into the ocean. All right, and it's also gonna help you learn, the sizes of things. So big, medium, and small. Think of it like a drink. So the bottom half of your paper, the foreground, that's big because it's the closest to you. The middle ground is medium. So anything in the middle ground will be medium sized. Anything in the background is gonna be small because it's even further away. And you wanna give the illusion that everything is getting smaller as it goes into the distance. So as things get close to that horizon line, they're gonna get smaller and smaller until they eventually disappear because you can't see forever. What I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna make a road in the middle, kind of like what we did last time. So the road that's closest to us, it's going to be wider because we're really close to it. So I'm gonna draw a line here and a line here. That's for my road. And I'm gonna imagine that these lines are hills, so the road is kind of going up. So that's why these lines are curved. And then maybe my road is windy and twisty and I want to curve the other way towards the left-hand side of my paper. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna first think about what space I'm in. And this is the middle ground. So we have big, so we need medium size. So it's gonna be a little bit skinnier, but I'm gonna curve it this way. So it's wider and then it gets skinnier in the middle ground. And then I want my road to kind of curve this way towards the right. So I'm gonna draw a curvy line this way. And then since it's in the background, this line's gonna be even closer. And you can even have these lines get closer and closer and closer until they basically touch on the horizon line. Because right here, that would be the vanishing point. And remember what we talked about last time is the vanishing point is where things just disappear. Okay, so we have our foreground, middle ground, and background. Okay, last year we talked about landscapes and we used the artist Grandma Moses to make a pumpkin patch. So I'm gonna show you kind of how to add things using that picture and that artist in mind. And you'll see a picture in a minute to get, refresh your memory. Okay, so foreground. If I have apple orchard on this side, pumpkins on this side, the trees and the pumpkins are going to be larger than the trees in the middle ground and background because they're closest to us. So your trees, so let's just say they're apple trees. I'm going to draw 2 vertical lines to make the trunk, and then I'm going to make some branches. The branches are going to be like fingers sticking up. And then I'm going to add more fingers coming off to make the branches for the trees. If you just wanted to add this shape for the top of the tree, you can, but I feel like this makes it look a little bit more realistic because that's how the branches look. And then you can add your apples. I'm seeing that this marker is a little too thick for this, so I'm going to switch to my thinner marker. Let's try this other one. I kind of want them to match. So I'm going to make my 2 vertical lines, and then like my fingers coming out, and then more lines coming out from there. And then a curvy lines going around. And then make my apples. Or you could just make regular trees. Okay. And then on the middle ground, my trees that are in the middle, they're going to be a little bit smaller. So I'm going to do the same trees, but since they're in middle ground, or in the middle ground, I should say, they're going to be a little bit smaller. So they're going to be medium sized. And I'm not even going to bother drawing the branches now because those trees are far away, so you're not going to see as much detail. When you see something that's far away, you're not going to really make out all the details. And then the background, these trees in the background, they're going to be even smaller because they're closer to the horizon line. Okay, and maybe I'll add some apples here. And then the apples on these trees are so small, they're like dots over in the back. Okay, so on this side, I'm gonna do pumpkins. And it's a really easy way to kind of see how to size things out because pumpkins are basically circles or ovals, and those are kind of easy to draw. So, and I'm gonna use my thinner marker for this. So the pumpkins in the foreground, the ones closest to us, they're gonna be big. Even if they're different sizes, they're still gonna be bigger than the pumpkins in the middle ground, which are gonna be medium sized. And then if you have a row of pumpkins in the background, they're gonna be small. And if you had pumpkins that were even closer to the horizon line, they'd be like super tiny. Almost just like dots. Okay. If there are houses, animals, people in your picture, same thing. If there was a house in the foreground, it would be big. If there was a house in the middle ground, it'd be medium. And if there was a house in the background, it'd be small. So as you're getting closer to the horizon line, the smaller things are going to get. And these lines kind of help you figure that out. Okay. When you're done adding your details, you can start to add color. You could use markers, you could use colored pencils, you could use crayons, whatever you have on hand or whatever you feel comfortable with, it doesn't matter. I just want everyone to practice making things in the foreground big, things in the middle ground medium, and the objects and things in the background small, okay? And other details you could add are like fences, more buildings. If there's a city in the background, say skyscraper, so maybe this is close to the city and the city is far off in the distance, those buildings in the background are going to be small. Even though they're skyscrapers, they're going to still be small because they're far away. So I'll just draw some rectangles so you guys can see that. And they'd be different shapes, different sizes, different levels, but they're far away. I'll put some really tall buildings in the background. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to start adding color now. All right, guys, I'm going to continue coloring. I'm also going to add some other details. I started adding lines for the ground and I changed the direction of them. That's just going to help the picture have a lot of texture and a little bit more interest than if all the lines are going in the straight same way, same pattern. I'm also gonna draw a fence just to add a little bit more detail. And I'm just drawing straight lines that are going up and down. They're lining up with the sides of the paper. And then I'm gonna add the parts that go in the middle. Just to add more color and some more detail. And of course you could add houses and cars and people, animals, anything else you wanted. Just make sure that you're keeping things sized correctly. So big, medium, and small. Okay, so I finished coloring things in. I just use markers and lines. If you wanted to color everything in perfectly and have no white space, that's fine too. And again, it really depends if you're using markers, crayons, or colored pencils, totally up to you. When things are going further into the distance, I wanted to show you a thing called atmospheric perspective. So the colors of the objects and things that are closest to you are going to be darker usually. So I had a darker orange. And then for the pumpkins, in the background, I made them a lighter orange. So things are also going to get lighter in the background. And I did the same thing with my trees back here. So that's something also to think about when you're making your picture and adding color. It's not necessary, but it's something that you could add just to give it a little bit more realism. All right, guys, I cannot wait to see what kind of landscapes you guys come up with. Again, it doesn't have to be a fall landscape, but since it's fall, why not use those really bright colors? Okay, guys, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye.